is always trying to ice skate uphill.
Welcome everybody to Blerdlines. This is your man Cam. With me, as always, is
the other Cam. Chelsea for life. Let's go, bro.
as well as
this is Josh. I'm gonna forego slandering my homie with the wrong jersey on over there. Unfortunately, neither of us can talk trash, even though I'm gonna sit here and highlight my Manchester United badge on my jersey. Neither of us can talk trash because both of our teams are in the garbage can currently. But
team is rubbish.
But both our teams are rubbish, so okay.
at least ours goes to recycling.
And as always, bring up the rear, making us honest.
Hey, it's the professor. I don't have nothing. I don't have a team, so there's that.
This wasn't planned, by the way, this whole situation we have going on. I logged in, I have my jersey on, and this guy comes in with his, with his blue and white blasphemy.
Man, if you don't go tell pedestrians to slow down with that colored shirt on, leave me alone.
I love it because my nephew is a big football fan. He's really good, and I see him once every 3 months, and so every 3 months he has a new team, and I keep trying to tell him dude, you can't do that. He's like, but one time he likes Arsenal, next he likes Man U, then next time he likes Liverpool. I'm like, dude, you got to stick to one and just be loyal.
How old is he?
He's what is he now? 11 and a half?
Yeah, it's fine.
He'll get there. He'll settle.
But we are here to talk about Last of Us Season 2. Last of Us Season 2 is based off of the video games of The Last of Us 2. They have taken some liberties. They did a couple different things. But overall, it wrapped up. We've heard that they're going to take the second video game and kind of chop it up into, I think, 3 parts is what I've been hearing. 2 to 3 parts, something like that.
Roughly, including this season, possibly one next season, and maybe part of the one after that.
Yeah. And so we've, from the video game standpoint, we have Last of Us 1, which is pretty much the first season. Last of Us 2, if they do that, they're breaking it up into 3 seasons roughly. There's been a lot of quibbles. There's been a couple little changes that they've done to expand the narrative of the video game, but also there's things that they've kept pretty solid to the video game, which has been quite interesting. We all got a good chance to kind of watch it, get into it. But I wanted to see, I'll throw it out to you guys about what did you guys enjoy about it, what you didn't like it, and where did it sit for you guys? So I'll start with Cam. How did you enjoy your time watching Last of Us Season 2?
I mean, my biggest critique about this show is that they portray Ellie as kind of dumbass, and in the game she's not that. She's kind of intelligent, I do think both seasons do lack some action if we're kind of following the game. But the flip side is that I do like that they do go into other storylines, or they expand on other parts of the game in the story. I think for me, I always like Ellie, the video game character, but I enjoy the show more than I like playing the game. Because the game is more of a cinematic experience, and I enjoy the show, which almost made me want to go back and visit the game. But then I started thinking about it. I was like, I don't really like this game, but I do like the show more. And I'm okay with never finishing both games and just watching the show in its entirety and be good with that. I do like most of the cast. One of my biggest gripes is that, oh my God, Ellie, who was played by, let me get her name right, Bella Ramsey. Season 2, I think she should look a little bit older, a little bit more wiser, weathered. Bella Ramsey looks the same. That was it's a minor critique, but it doesn't seem like there's any growth with her character from season 1 to season 2. I think Ellie's character is hasn't learned anything. There's no growth with her, her. And in this show,
with them.
No, well, Ellie.
No, Ellie.
Ellie is her.
My fault.
Yeah,
Yep,
Ellie is her.
Got it. Got it. My fault.
You're trying to get our pronouns right. Ellie is her. So with her character, I just feel like there's no growth. Very selfish. I think the writers left a lot to be desired with her character specifically. I'm more compelled with the secondary characters in season 2. I think they need to. There's something missing. There's been a critique about the lack of action in there. It's not a big deal, but for me there is. That's part of the game. The action sequences, the I don't want to say gratuitous violence, but there's some moments in there that made fans that people are reminded in the game that they wanted to see in the show that I think is lacking. But overall, it wasn't as bad as people said it was. For me, I think it was a little slow.
People said it was bad.
Some people don't like it. They just don't think season 2, because season 1 set a high bar. When you set a high bar, you got to either come with the same amount from season 1 or go
more.
above and beyond that. I don't think season 2 does that, to be fair.
Yes.
I mean, these are just minor critiques. It's fine. I don't hate the show. Like I said, I enjoy the show more than I would play the game. And I've played the game a little bit, but I'm not going to finish the game. I know what happens in the game. The one thing about the game, and this is kind of going off a tangent, is that the game mechanics were just all wonky. And like, I'm doing all these upgrades to this gun that don't even matter, right? So I'm just like, all right, whatever. But the thing that makes the game beautiful is the cinematic sequences in the game, where you see all the storylines come together and fold. And it was written really well for a game. So I'll give it that. And so they take that show and put it in the show, and they expanded on elements of the game that we didn't see in the game in the show. And I thought that was cool. Like the one episode with the 2 characters that I am having a little lost for words, but it was the one episode where everybody was like, "Oh, this is dope." Between the couple, the survivalist and his partner, that was like, and they were a minor. Well, they were not minor, but they weren't.
You're talking about in season 1.
Season 1, but that
Bill,
was the magic. Yeah, Bill.
Yeah,
that was the magic of the show. He was like, "Oh, that's an angle I've never saw before that the game didn't give us." So that was cool. I don't think we got that in season 2, but like I said, my stuff is minor, right? I am looking forward to season 3 from what I believe is the perspective of Abby. There was a gripe that she didn't look buff enough, but I think her acting, it's strong enough that I'm convinced Abby is that ruthless in her quest to avenge her father's death and whatnot. Her not looking like Ronda Rousey, it doesn't bother me as much as other people. So who cares?
Yeah. D, what'd you think?
Well, I enjoyed season 2. I think to respond to the differences in the adaptation, I'm kind of glad I didn't have any kind of experience with the game before seeing the show, because I'm seeing that there is this desire for a carryover, but I think they've just kind of made peace with there's just not a way for them to get the same type of video gaming action in the episodes. But to your point, it did feel like they had one scaly moment at the very, and it was a really good one. It was a really good one in episode 2. We'll have lots to say about that coming up, but yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up. But I think in terms of the differences in adaptation, I'm just kind of thinking about it, replaying the show and the narration in my mind now. But I think overall, this season was, I thought, still strong writing. I thought the character development was a little wonky with Ellie. And I think at first it was inconsistent with Dina, but then it leveled off because early on she was kind of an enabler, but then, because I don't think Ellie's dumb. I disagree with that. I think Ellie is immature and emotionally immature. And this is why she struggles with trying to have adult conversations and be an adult. The perfect example of this, 2 examples and kind of related, is the episode after episode 2, the big death that changes everything. She's trying to make her case about going on a mission to, get those to go after Abby and the what are they? The WLF?
The Wolves.
The wolves, this militia, they're going after them. And the townspeople had just gotten attacked by, the infected, and it was bad. And so they're kind of torn. And so she has to write down how she feels, because she knows if she goes up there and talks, she's gonna wreck it. And so you see that it's not that she's dumb, it's that she's emotionally immature, because it's similar to, her sort of morals, in that on the one hand, this is someone who we see is willing to risk life and limb to go save this random scab, scar, seraphim, whatever they call them. And yet they try to murder her, but she ignores that. All she sees is a kid being abused by armed men and women. So Ellie is a complex protagonist. And I think if you see her that way, you can kind of judge the writing a little bit fairer. At first, I thought there was some inconsistency, but then, like I said, it mellows out, because you kind of see that this is still a person trying to grow up, and she's growing up in a where the world is now the jungle, right? So like, we're not the top of the food chain anymore. The cordyceps is, and there's all this danger, and not to mention, she never had the stable anything before, and Joel was her whole world. So I like that complex nature of the storytelling, in that we're not watching a narrative that's about someone that we need to necessarily like, right? Did anybody like Walter White? Like, seriously, after a fashion, do you like Walter White, or do you like Tony Soprano? No, but yeah, well, Josh, you're a special kind of person, and so am I. So, we like different, sort of the villainous protagonist. But that's not what I think Ellie is. I think that Ellie is just really emotionally immature, and they really do a decent job of trying to build on that post her trauma. It seems like they got shorthanded, just like House of the Dragon, in terms of having 7 episodes this season versus last season, where I think it was 9 or 10, I think, or something like that. So to your point, Cam, they took a hit in quality the same way that House of the Dragon took a hit, because they had to stretch out and didn't have the sort of, you always typically with these, you have in the sophomore season, some big happens to start the season, and then you build up, and it's usually something that's wrapping up, something that carried over from the previous season, and then you build toward this next thing, this next escalation, and then something big happens. Well, we didn't really get that in the same way. There is a moment at the very end, but yeah.
Can I offer a counterpoint real quick before the next person takes over? So there was the moment where the Scar kid was getting killed. So now I can flash back to season 1, where Joel and Ellie were trying to make their way to another area, and they see somebody asking for help, and Joel is like, "No, this is a trap." I want growth there in season 2, like where she sees somebody that looks like they need help, but the greater picture is to survive. Like, you have to understand survive. And her emotional immaturity still overcomes what's the right thing to do. We're outnumbered. We're not going to take help. I know you want to help them, but this is not the reality of the world. And she should took these notes from Joel, who is the ultimate survivor. And if she had all this time that's passed, what is she taking away from Joel? Like, what is she?
She didn't take, but she doesn't take lead well. Like,
well, I'll answer that.
She's not well led. Like, she doesn't just do things because people told her to. But part of that is her emotional immaturity. Sorry, but last point. That part of that is her emotional immaturity, and part of that is just apparently who the character is.
I agree with that, with both of those things. But to answer your question, I think they tried to show that from Joel, she's taken the sort of finer points of her survival skills. So I'm thinking of the scene in which she and Dina are attacked by the smart cordyceps creatures or whatever, and she's willing to sacrifice herself, put her arm in front because she knows that she won't die, even though Dina doesn't know that at that point. And so I saw that in the moment in which, and so you see that Dina is the obviously more emotionally mature, right? Dina's like, okay, we can do it your way, or we could try it this way, in which it might result in us not being killed. And so Ellie follows her lead, but then as soon as, for lack of a better phrase, the shit hits the fan and it's like full throttle survival mode, those roles switch. Dina is now following Ellie's lead because Ellie is the much more stronger and capable person in that scenario. It might be a small thing, but I agree with you. To your counterpoint about seeing the Sarah kid, she should have been bigger. She doesn't put the bigger picture in.
And I only say this because there were multiple moments like this, and the other one is when Dina said, "Hey, let's not shoot it out with the cordyceps because you always shoot it out." You know what I'm saying? Let's think about this, because in reality, Dina is. If Joel's raising the perfect daughter, it's Dina because
Dina would have been his perfect daughter. Yes,
100%.
Dina is who we want Ellie to be, but I'm just like, there's got to be certain things that Ellie has taken from Joel that show some growth and some maturity, especially when encountering this world of surviving. Those are the basic things I want. Now, she could be emotionally immature because, again, anybody who's just lost a loved one in that aspect, in the way it happened, is going to react a certain way. And it was smart. I think, I can't think of his name, who told her to write it down. Because, she's emotionally unstable and she's not going to get everything she wants to get out to appeal to the group to write this down. That part is dope because that's what makes Ellie Ellie. But there's other things that I felt like we kept getting reminded, not to say she's dumb, but I don't think she's learned anything from Joel and those travels, especially when encountering, tracking, and mapping out certain ways of doing it. She's been in this town for, I think, 5 years. You know what I'm saying? You would think she's grown in that aspect of the hunter or scouting and whatnot.
Well, I think sometimes depending on the mode of storytelling and the narration that you're going with, your protagonist may be pushed to learn things, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And that becomes the point of their character, and it may ultimately lead them to where they're going. Case in point, a Tony Soprano or a Walter White or a Francis Underwood or something like that. It could be that these writers are saying, listen, Ellie is on a one-track path, and that's a path to destruction. Ultimately, she's going to destroy herself, and she'll likely destroy those around her as well. And this is something that she did pick up from Joel, because what was some of the things that Joel did? He destroyed he made choices that ultimately blew back on him and often destroyed his relationships. They show that with the Eugene situation. They show that with the opening scene in episode 6 with his dad and him lying for Tommy. His dad reacted in a way that he didn't even expect. So and that's why I was telling Josh, I think the writing in episode 6 was the strongest out of all of the episodes.
Absolutely.
And I think that even though, as much as I loved episode 2, and I thought it was extremely well balanced in the way it started, in the middle, and then especially the way it ended. But this was a whole nother level in which you now see, based on the structure that they go with, this sort of theme of these are characters, these are two individuals, Ellie and Joel, who were more alike than they thought. And they both have a sense of righteousness that will lead them into destruction. And so I know in the game she may survive, but maybe there's something else planned for this show because it fits more with her destructive nature.
Yeah, and I would say like Ellie's character kind of fit with what was going on in the time of that game and the first game, where like there was a narrative for female protagonists that were usually teenagers. There was just a destructive narrative. So it was like in Divergent, it was in Hunger Games, it was in a lot of these different other fictional characters where that kind of like was the theme. There was like a selfish female protagonist that would do things that would get everyone around her either just like killed, the world would go, whatever, all these things, and they didn't learn from the mistakes. And they would take everyone down with them. Hunger Games is a great example of that. Divergent is another one, and this kind of followed that suit. So it's interesting to see that it kind of, because it was written in that kind of time period where that was like the popular thing to do, where it was usually a female protagonist. She was very selfish or very headstrong, and it would just get the people around her either killed, maimed, or destroyed, essentially.
Difference being, though, Katniss Everdeen and those other protagonists in the very end and final thick of things, they seem to be more heroic and they win.
Yep.
Whereas I don't think that Druckmann and the writers of this has that plan for Ellie.
I agree.
think even with the way that season 2 ends, it showed us that. It showed us she makes decisions. She doesn't think them through. And as a result, people die. People get hurt. Joel did the same thing. Joel did not think about what he was doing when he went through that hospital like the Terminator.
He basically effed off humanity. He was like, yeah, I'm being selfish, which Ellie does a lot. Selfish.
Well, I won't say that Joel didn't make the right decision, but that's another
decision. He made a decision. He made a business decision.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think, and it was what, 8? We had like 8 episodes this time?
Seven,
something like that. Yeah. And to your point earlier, it was just like, the reception of it was interesting because I think it out the gate, the first 3 episodes, everyone was like, whoa. And then it kind of just tailed off at the end. Going back to what you said, like normally when you have a second season, you have the resolution of the first, and then you have, some calm time, then it's something else, some other conflict that happens. And then it either ends on a cliffhanger, climax, right? Or ends on the cliffhanger. But this one kind of had this weird flow that kind of just, the first 3 episodes was basically the show, and then the rest of it was kind of like the aftermath of it,
Yeah, episode 6 probably, if they had just done those 4, the first 3 in episode 6, I think that's pretty much the season. That's not to say that those other episodes weren't useful, because I think they did a good job of continuing to develop, if nothing else, Dina. And I think that development worked really well with her being a new character. And shout out to Isabella Merced, because she's just a phenomenal actress. I mean, she carried those scenes and sometimes was a little bit more than carrying it a little bit more than Bella Ramsey. So that's the plus for those other episodes, is that you got to see the development of Dina, and she becomes a character that you're rooting for, and you're holding your breath hoping that Ellie doesn't get her killed. You just know that Ellie is taking her to her doom. So, give the writers credit, they make that sense of danger real. So even if Ellie, you don't get that sense of danger because of the way she behaves, you still feel it based on the people around her. Poor Jessie, man. I was again, another example.
Yeah, I would say the other thing too I was going to say was so completely off topic, but on topic. The original Dina is played by the actress that Ashley Johnson that was Chrissy Seaver back in Growing Pains. The reason why I know this is I'm watching Blind Spot, which is on Netflix now, and she's in that as well. And I connected the dots, and I was just like, "Yo, this is the same, the same person of all those situations." But what I liked about one thing about the show is a lot of the voice actors from the video game will chime in on what the show was. So when Joel gets killed in the first 2 episodes, that people talk about, the voice actresses talk about, hey, when they did it in the game, some people felt that it was like random or it was like a shock or whatever, and they felt that the show actually did it a better way that gave a little bit more humanity to why the killing happened, as opposed to the video game where you're just playing going along and boom, Joel's dead, and you're like, wait, hold on, what just happened? And so I like that a lot of the people that were involved in the video game are also involved in the show in terms of just either opining about it or actually just, adding to it. So I think that part actually was really cool. My main thing about the next for Last of Us now is kind of like, where does it go? I think I played the first game and I did complete it, but I only played the second game maybe halfway through, kind of like Cam, like, it's a cool game, but it wasn't something that grabbed me, or like the type of game that I would play on a normal basis. So I didn't really like complete it in a way where other people that are really, really hardcore about it. And to the people that play the video game, they actually didn't spoil. A lot of people were talking about that, where folks didn't really spoil what was going to happen in season 2. And they actually,
I'm surprised about that, because I didn't hear at all any of that. So I didn't read anything about it. I didn't shout out and hats off to the OG gaming fans of the show, of the game. They, like you said, they did not spoil that. At least no circle that I was in, there was no spoilings.
Yeah, I remember there was about a controversy about season 2, and that I already knew a lot that was going to happen. So it was like a lot of game controversy about the second part because of the lack of Joel and character development of Abby and Ellie and whatnot. So I already knew it was going to happen. Like when I saw the end of season 1, I was like, oh, I know where they're going. So just off what happened, I'm like, okay, this is the direction they're going. And then end of season 2, I'm just like, okay, they're just going to basically, in my opinion, go from the POV of Abby, and which is cool because it might show the empathy, give you some empathy for the character instead of her just looking at her as just a ruthless person. But if you've played the game, you understand why the writers did this. But again, even in the game, people thought that was they didn't like it at first. And then it kind of came back full circle and they enjoyed that portion of the game where you played as a different character. It just took them out of what was known from the first game into the second game, where you're just getting a whole different perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also, again, going back to adaptations, we all know most video game adaptations are not good. And this is one where they are stellar to the point where the first season really recreated the first game really well and then expanded on it, but then the second season, same thing. They're doing slight tweaks to the game to give a little bit more humanity to a lot of the characters and flesh it out a little bit more, which actually is kind of a good thing. So I'm really curious to see where it goes and how it takes it. The only other thing I was
to see if they make this if this becomes a trend that catches on. I think you got The Last of Us successful 2 seasons, Fallout on Prime, huge hit for its first season, coming back for a second. I think it's already been renewed for
third
or fourth or whatever. So I've been seeing a lot of chatter of people saying, oh, now that we've gotten a good Last of Us adaptation and Fallout, why not adapt Red Dead Redemption or, a thing like that? Because to me, Red Dead Redemption 2 is the greatest video game narrative I've ever played. In terms of a story writing, and that's just the writing. But anyway, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I know
God of War would like a word, my brother.
Word.
Also,
the writing is not better. It's not better.
But also, Elden Ring is doing a live action from Alex Garland, the Civil War and the Civil War director as well. So there's which could be, but again, like you said, now that they've shown that you can make prestige format television based off of video games, now there's no excuse. Because before all of this, what did we have? We had Resident Evil, we had other random silliness. But at least now, like Fallout is a great example. I've always heard about Fallout as a video game for years, never played it. I know a couple of friends, shout out to Richter, he's a big fan of Fallout 4, but I just never had played it. So watching the show, I was like, yo, this world is amazing. Super interesting. Yeah. The characters cool. So, and it gave a resurgence to the video game for people to start to play it. And so I think I actually agree with you on that, where now it's now the bar is set to a good point where like now you just can't do some silliness anymore if you're going to do a video game. Like you actually got to put some effort into it. Like we're not looking at old school Super Mario Brothers with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo.
Can I say about Elden Ring that it's just Lord of the Rings, the first age? It's just Tolkien. It's just the first age of Tolkien's world. That's all it is.
Hey, man, look, brother. Look, I'm not about to have this Elden Ring slander on Father's Day, bro.
I'm sorry.
You know how I feel about Elden Ring.
I'll cut the Elden Ring hate.
Give a
little bit of context. D'Angelo loves Elden Ring, and he refuses to play it in its entirety because he felt bamboozled and hoodwinked. However, Elden Ring is a god tier game, regardless of this man's opinion.
It is that.
So, comments be damned. Elden Ring, go play Elden Ring, y'all. If y'all have never played it, it's a great game. But outside of that, I would also agree with Cam. Watching Fallout, the series, did get me to play Fallout 4, and I've been hooked since. It's a 15-year-old game. I would say that about the Witcher series. I never played any of the Witcher's game. I didn't read any of the books, but after the fact, I got more into. Well, actually, I did read some. I read one Witcher book, but I didn't play the game, and I was like years too late. And when I played the game, now I understand why folks were mad at Cyberpunk 2077 because it was from the same developer company, and they were expecting a god tier game such as Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk on launch. Now, Cyberpunk now is an amazing game. And in my opinion, it was always an amazing game.
Amazing.
And if they're going to make a show, Cyberpunk.
I agree.
They did the animation, do Cyberpunk and make that a series of just, I would say, in my opinion, I don't want to go too off on a tangent, but if you're going to do Cyberpunk, make it like kind of like a vignette of just every season be different, and we just follow these different characters in the life of the city. You know what I'm saying? Don't follow just one protagonist or one hero.
Yeah, because the city, the city is the character, and then you just get to see the stories in between it. And I think that would be a good way to look at it, because like I was late to Cyberpunk, but I came in later when they had fixed a bunch of patches, so I didn't get to see the launch craziness, and so just going through it just fresh was amazing. And same thing with Witcher. Like I had heard about Witcher before, and I got it, on the cheap. So I was like, oh, cool. I got down DLCs and just started playing it. And I was like, yo, this is crazy. Like super expansive, so interesting, and like
crazy.
Yeah, I read the books. I was talking to D about the books and just like, the short stories and everything else. So again, it's one of those things where like when the games or the TV shows can get you back into the original source materials, that's when it was already a good game. But yeah, so we'll wrap it on that before we get on even more tangents into video games. Oh, sorry.
I did not get to talk about what I thought about it.
My bad, Admiral Josh.
It was nice. I liked it. We can go now. No.
So for those who don't know, Josh doesn't. Well, he does play video games, but he hasn't. When was the last time you owned a console?
Let's not even do that. Let's not even do that. When I have the time, I haven't had the dough to do video games. When I had the dough, I didn't have the time. It's weird paradox. But there was a point where I was in it at least as much as the rest of y'all, and I just haven't had it like that. But in terms of season 2, I thought it was expertly done. D'Angelo warned me that episode 6 was the one. As much as I thought, my commentary initially was, the episode where Joel dies is the Emmy submission, Hard Body. And that episode 6 was wow. Like, and they cover so much territory in the 1 hour and flesh out and give you context for pretty much everything that happened intervening between season 1 and season 2 in such an expert way with zero fluff. All of it is relevant, and when they finally get to the thing that sort of begins to repair the schism between Ellie and Joel, it brings home just how damaging Joel's passing was Joel's murder, excuse me, was for Ellie because they were on the, you find out in so much as they weren't talking the entire time, leading up to his murder, they were on the mend. So it makes it that much worse. And that they waited to show you that until nearly the end of the season made it that much more impactful, I thought. I think the hunt for Abby, there's a part of me that's kind of like, all right, man, like once you find out that that this girl, that Dina is pregnant, go home. Just go home.
It's over, or we have to wait it out, or
we have to wait.
This changes things.
Let's just turn around and go home. So that was a little wonky and weird for me, especially. And I liked the moment where they had that moment of pause, but I felt like that should have resulted in them going home. Like when they see the mural and then the dead bodies under the mural, and they're like, yeah, we might be in over our heads here. Like, this is, I don't know. Yeah. Like, these people are different. They're not, this is not just malicious stuff. This is a whole other faction, it looks like, that is doing very weird things. And I think it might be time to take your pregnant behind home. And they just pressed on. To me, that was kind of, that as character decisions go, that didn't ring. And in keeping in mind that Ellie is completely revenge bound and driven almost insane practically by her obsession to go find Abby. Even with that, once you find out there's a baby on the way, and it didn't ring logical to me, even factoring in that Ellie is just out of her mind, bent on revenge. That aside, I think everything else worked. I agree with what everybody else said in terms of Dina's sort of leveling off, and like her role is very clearly defined when she is the cooler head that always prevails, whereas Ellie is trying to be a bull in a china shop and just charge through every door, guns blazing. Dina is very clearly the voice of reason, the tactician. If there's a plan to be made, Dina is the one who makes it. And Isabella Merced is definitely maturing in front of our eyes as an actress. I agree with D when he said, she's almost like the more likable character to watch. Like, she's the one you want to there's something about not just the way that the character is written, but the way that Isabella Merced sort of portrays the character. She draws you in. Like, there's something about every time that she's on screen that just pulls your eye towards her.
Very much.
Completely batting aside that she's a very attractive woman, like nothing to do with that. It's really just her acting. Like, she's really got a thing. She's whatever that thing is, that intangible thing that makes an actor watchable. She's definitely got it in spade. Like, there's somebody else out there who wants to act that doesn't have it because she's got it. She's got hers and theirs.
And Josh, there were two moments that perfectly illustrate exactly what you're talking about. There was the moment where after Ellie comes out of the hospital and Dina visits her right after Joel was murdered, and she brings her cookies, and she's like, all right, now you're going to be upset with me. And she tells her all the information that she's known. And of course, Ellie gets into that immature mode.
That headspace.
I don't fucking care what you got to say. And then Dina's like, whoa, you're not the only person that loved Joel, man. Like, and so her delivery of that, like you said, was just, it pulled you in exactly the way it was supposed to, because the moment before, she's giving her cookies and, trying to cheer her up, but she immediately, checks her and it's like, no,
I mean,
not gonna make me feel that way.
There's levels to grieving, and there's levels of how much a person cares. Clearly, Dina has a relationship with Joel, but Ellie has a deeper relationship with Joel because he basically saved her life and walked her up.
Right.
So
I'm speaking to the performance, not to.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Not to the dynamic or what's at play there. Yeah, of course, like you're saying, there's a difference in the relationship. A cousin mourning their uncle or aunt is not the same as the cousin mourning their father and mother. So we get that, but no, to Josh's point about the performance, I just thought that was a good moment where Isabella Merced's acting shone through, and it was a lot better than Bella Ramsey, which is hard because Bella Ramsey is a very talented actor.
I would say that there was one moment where there was a shift in the dynamic between Dina and Ellie. It was when after Ellie kills Nora and she comes back and she was like, she has this moment where I don't think it was worth it. And Dina was like, oh, you can see the shift. It was like, we need to go back now. Like,
well, she told her what she told her.
What Joel did, yeah.
And Joel
and why
did.
Abby
And that was
basically killed him. Yeah.
And that was the first time Dina had heard that.
Yeah.
That she knew the full story. And so, she represents a really good foil to Ellie. And it was no more apparent than when she tells her backstory, where she's like, Joel brought Ellie to Jackson. He protected her and taught her how to fight. Dina's whole family was killed by cordyceps monsters, and she was only like, she said like 8 or 10 or something like that.
She was 8.
And she made her way all the way across the country by herself, and survived. So in that moment, you see that these two are foils. They're the opposites. Ellie is the privileged kid of this world who had the things, Joel was there for her, helped her, a lot of people. Whereas Dina, from the very moment from the very moment she was born, has had to fight her way in a serious way, no help and all of that stuff.
She got it out the mud, quote unquote.
Yeah. And if Joel would have let Ellie get killed, then this world would have been fine. Everybody would be okay.
But yeah, all in all, I definitely agree with the assessment that Ellie is wildly immature. Annoyingly so. Anybody with a teenager who is given to wanting to do things on their own to the degree that even approaching the degree that Ellie does knows that at some point, you will consider balling up a fist and just being just to the moon one time. And Ellie is definitely one of those kids. If you have that teenager,
shout out to the honeymoons reference.
Word.
Hey, happy Father's Day, people.
Yeah, and I think Ellie is definitely one of those. She's like two of those kids, really. She definitely has an extra dose. But there's something in so much as like for me, Ellie is a very dislikable character. Like, I don't like her.
Absolutely.
But you still root for her somehow. And I think the writers and Bella Ramsey do a great job. Root for them. And I think Bella Ramsey does an excellent job of sort of carving a path through the writing to make that palpable and tangible for the viewer. So, not to be outdone by Isabella Merced, Bella Ramsey has her own set of things that she's doing and bringing to the table, some acting tools and just straight up ability that I think shines through the dislikability that her character brings to the table. Because you still root for her, you still want her to be okay, you still get scared for her when there's danger, even though she's at this stage of the game, very unlikable, or she's doing very unlikable things. She's still a kid. She's still a sweetheart somewhere in the middle of all of that dislikability. But I think it bears repeating. She's still a kid. And I think that's the likability factor. Like, in so much as she's impulsive and irrational and says and does all of these things without thinking, you still give her a pass because she's learning-ish like Cam pointed out, she hasn't learned much in between season 1 and season 2. She hasn't. It's like she's become more of the things that you would that pull her away from learning, if anything.
It's an awkward conditioning because of the world, right? So,
right.
You know, how does adolescent behavior thrive in that world? It wouldn't, right? It would be stamped out. Dina is an example of that. So why is Ellie not adapting in that way? That's the weirdness that I thought that you pointed out first with the character. And to Cam's point, larger point, that, for example, when they go in the building and she falls through the roof, you know, I thought that's like the most obvious thing anybody living in this world would know, to like not do that. So, you know, it's in an apocalypse world, why are you behaving like an American 21st century youth?
Yeah.
Big facts. Big facts.
Yeah. And I think the end, you know, the season ender was pretty solid. Sorry to see you go, Jesse. You know, you ain't gonna see your kid. But yeah, I mean, I should have seen it coming, because all of a sudden you got all this character development out of him, whereas he's been kind of stoic and just one way the entire season. You know, he sort of warms to Ellie and sort of begins to confide in her about the girl with the Mexican family who passed through, or excuse me, the girl with the family on their way to Mexico who passed through. And he realized then that his connection to that girl was stronger in 2 weeks than any connection he ever had with Dina. I thought that was a really good moment. And again, it only takes one moment. If it's not one line of dialogue, it takes just like one quick scene to sort of flesh somebody out and give them a little bit more depth and a little bit more breadth and a little bit more scale. It's unfortunate that immediately after that he got shot in the head, but you know, it was good work. It was good writing and good character work to see that fleshed out, even in that short span of time. It's unfortunate that you don't get to see more of that and learn more about that character because he got shot in the head. But yeah, and Abby, you know, it's very clear that, you know, even if you didn't know this about the video game, it's clear that the show is not going to take off from Abby's POV, which I thought which I think both for the game and for the show is an interesting choice, in terms of fleshing out her character before you get back to the moment where that gunshot rings out. And we don't know whether, I mean, it's assumed that Ellie survives, but you know, it's an HBO show, so you never know. But yeah, overall, I wouldn't say that it's not as impactful as season 1 so much as it's different impactful from season 1. I thought it was as good. It just tugged on different heartstrings at different spots at different times.
Yeah. And so, I would say like season 1, they had good standalone episodes that helped the overall narrative, where season 2 is pretty much all about Ellie and her, how she's dealing with this craziness that's going on. And then you get a little bit of pieces of everything else. And so, and some of it works, some of it doesn't.
Yeah. Shout out to Caitlin Deaver, who played Abby. She did an excellent job.
Yeah, yes. Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So I think the one thing about the show overall, like narrative wise and casting wise, they did a really good job. And I think that's what kind of brings it. So I'm excited to see what they do with it. They've definitely put down a good foundation in season 1 and in season 2. Because I was curious to see, because every time we talk about this all the time, when a narrative has a time jump, it doesn't always necessarily work out. And so this one, you know, was a 5-year time jump from season 1 to 2. And so they did a pretty solid job of kind of keeping that narrative and then really honing down on the very specific characters. So we'll see how it kind of goes off for the next one. But now that everyone has had their say, just wanted to make sure everyone was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, once again, it's Blerdlines. Thanks everybody for listening. And like, subscribes, all the platforms. You know the deal. I got to say that early in the beginning, so everyone reminds me. But yeah,
Yo,
this is Blerd.
shout out to Jesse and Joe. Happy Father's Day. Peace. Too soon? Too soon? My bad.
No, just
ouch.
I love it. I love it. It was just the kind of thing you need to end the podcast.
And this is Blerdlines, and we out. Peace.
Later.